Good day, and welcome to Westchester Talk Radio. This is WestchesterTalkRadio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative, that is Shark with a C, not a K, Creative. And we are made possible by people like our good friends over at Entergy, Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April of 2021. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis, and by Hightower Westchester. Hightower manages your wealth to a fiduciary standard. Welcome to our isolation therapy series here throughout this COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. We sit down today here at Westchester Talk Radio with Craig Ruoff. Craig Ruoff is the Executive Managing Director for Westchester at Colliers International Group, commercial real estate brokers. And Craig Ruoff, we thank you for joining us here on Westchester Talk Radio. How are you?
I'm great, John. Thank you very much for having me on. And a big special thank you to Andrew Castellano from Sharc Creative for arranging this.
Andrew is a do-it-all kind of a guy, right? Our president, CEO at Sharc Creative, Westchester Talk Radio, the guy who runs the programming and a lot of the engineering too. So he is Mr. Do-It-All, no doubt about that. Craig, you just came over to Colliers Group from Cushman Wakefield in White Plains. You made a mark for yourself there. How was it that you moved from a place where you had a mark already made to moving into something else now with Colliers, where you kind of have to establish what you do all over again?
Well, my decision for making the move, I've been with Cushman for about 5.5 years. I've been in the industry for over 30 years now. And I just felt that the platform that Colliers offered for me provided me with more support so that I had more time to dedicate to my clients. And these days, since I specialize in representing companies that lease office space, my clients and my prospective clients are especially in need of advice and assistance. That was really the main reason for me moving over.
Now, in your role in working with your clients, whether they be brokers, whether they be lenders, whether they be renters, people who are looking to buy, et cetera, whether it's commercial office space or anything else, how, from what you've seen through your time at Cushman Wakefield earlier this year and now over at Colliers, how much has the COVID-19 pandemic affected pretty much all aspects of the tri-state area real estate community?
It's pretty much devastated it.
Yeah.
It has, when we went on pause, everything went on pause. Commercial real estate's probably one of the hardest hit industries by the pandemic. And, I've basically been spending my time since the pandemic hit doing as much research and educating myself to the best of my ability so that I can help companies that lease office space. And that's, everything in the beginning to what's happening with existing leases, what can be done to help people save money. Is there any way to get out of leases? All the questions we were being asked, to now where we're seeing more of companies that are starting to move back into their spaces or have already moved back into their space in one way, shape, or form, but they're finding that not necessarily all the employees are comfortable coming back in. And I'm speaking with more and more people and brainstorming on ways to make it more comfortable for those employees. And in addition, still working with many companies to find ways to help them save money, because most of the companies are not maximizing the use of their office space as they would otherwise.
When the pandemic first hit, how much of a shock was it to your customers, your clients, to have to just stop? You use the word pause. It was basically, like hitting the pause button on your tape recorder, for example, basically, except that was applying to real everyday life and you couldn't just do anything. You had to pretty much pause and stop in place. How does a market handle that? From doing what you do on a day-to-day, minute-to-minute basis, and then you're being told, right now, stop, you can't do this anymore until we tell you to again, until we tell you it's safe enough again. Could be in a week, could be in a month, could be in 2 years.
I think it impacted everybody differently. I mean, I have several clients that are essential businesses, So they've stayed open in, again, one way, shape, or form the whole time through. And I have others that are still not back in their space at all. And some of the companies, it was very impressive how well they did. I mean, these are sophisticated businesses. I primarily represent tenants in Westchester County, some in Fairfield County, and then wherever my clients need me, I have, affiliations, or not affiliations, but I have other Colliers International people in those markets that can help. And I have to tell you, the atmosphere and the culture at Colliers is fantastic. The collaboration is like I've never seen before. It's been a wonderful place to move to, especially during a time like this when you want all your resources available to you and all the ideas. So I've watched some of my clients, that are successful business people, and they've built successful businesses because they're very smart, they're very talented, and they're flexible. And they've rolled with this. And as devastating as it is on a personal level and a family level, they've kept their businesses functioning and moved off-site and set up shop remotely. And some have thrived. But on the flip side, there's others that have been really hit very, very hard. There are companies that need to be physically in place, and it's taken them longer. They've had harder time as far as, how their business has been impacted economically. That obviously translates to their ability to pay the rent.
You bring up a key word, a key phrase, flexible for businesses, that businesses found out they were flexible because they had to be. I think a lot of businesses too. For example, our good friend Andrew Castellano, when the pandemic hit, we at Westchester Talk Radio moved everything into our home studios. Andrew said to me immediately, what do you got at home? What do you need? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever it is, this is the way we have to do it right now. And that's the way the world has shaped and formed these past 6 months in a way in which I think many businesses didn't realize that they can be as flexible as they have needed to be, and they still need to be.
I think flexibility is a key attribute, key characteristic for any form of success, whether it's in life or business. If you're going to be successful, you need to be able to be flexible. You may have the best, it's the expression, the best laid plans, they always change. And you need to be able to turn direction and figure out how to make that situation work and carry on. And
that old adage, plans change, right? This is, I guess, very apropos. I think it applies here to this whole situation, what's gone on the last 6 months.
And it's, I don't want to play it down in any way, shape, or form. I'm thrilled to see companies doing well, but I am definitely seeing the flip side of the coin with companies that are having a very hard time. And then, individuals, you see it on the personal side too. I tend to build nice, strong relationships with my clients, and we talk about what's happening outside of the work environment. And it's hard on everybody. People are juggling kids at home, families, all the emotions that go with this, and trying to work at the same time. And different companies are finding that for some, they can have people work from home. For others, they're finding that it's very distracting for their people at home, and they're trying to find ways to get them to come back into the office. And that's a challenge. And I saw there was a statistic out the other week that in Manhattan, it was something like 10% of the employees that could go back to work have gone back. And in the burbs, it was around 30% of the employees that could go back have actually gone back. That's pretty light. But nobody wants to force anybody. Nobody wants anybody to be uncomfortable and to feel unsafe, or worse, to be unsafe.
And I have a lot of colleagues in this business here who work in other places, not at Westchester Talk Radio, but in other places, who say, John, I got to get back to my studio. Got to get back to the office. I got my kids at home. I got this, and the dog's running around. And I'm one person who I talk to frequently. Whenever I talk to her, it's all, wait a second, my dog again. Or, she tells her son, go out in the yard, go do something. And these are real challenges that people have, that you think about it, and it sounds like, no, couldn't be. You tell your kid, go. You tell the dog, you shut the door, and the dog, is outside of the room. And no, dogs find their way into your room when you're working. The kids always have something that they need you for, and this is something you have to find a way to acclimate to.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, my office with Colliers was, I believe, one of the first, if not the first, Colliers office to reopen. And we're doing a modified schedule. We're doing 25% capacity Monday and Tuesday. Nobody's in on Wednesday, and 25% capacity Thursday and Friday. And the other days, I'm home. And when I'm home, we have 4 people here at home that need an office setup of some sort, whether it's for school or work. And we went out and we increased our broadband so that we would have enough bandwidth, literally, to handle all the video work that's being done from home.
And if you keep doing this, pretty soon your house is going to look like your office at Colliers, right? I mean, all of Colliers, not just where Craig Ruoff works from, right?
I do find that there is a benefit to being in the office. It's a different vibe, it's a different mindset, even though we have to be careful and social distance, and we are extremely careful. You still can collaborate and you still can see each other, and you can still work at a different level than I feel can be accomplished at home. Obviously, it's industry specific, but I'm finding in my industry, and I am hearing from lots of people out there, that they're looking forward to being able to get back into their place of business and be able to function at full capacity.
At Colliers, what have you done at Colliers? What do you see Colliers doing to help renters, to help businesses, to help tenants, to help landlords through these unprecedented times when it comes to things like getting some rent relief maybe, or restructuring an agreement? And knowing that all agreements cannot, some can be restructured, some due to the fine print, maybe they can't be.
So as a relatively new person at Colliers, I don't know every level of capacity, but we are a global commercial real estate company, which means that we handle everything you can think of as it pertains to real estate, which means we represent businesses, we represent landlords, we represent tenants, office, retail, industrial, et cetera. It goes on and on, financing of properties, equity acquisitions. My area of expertise is in representing tenants in office lease transactions. The length of time and the creativity that I've learned through the years in doing this has also helped me to work with certain landlords with helping them not just bring tenants to their building, but to retain tenants in their building. You pick up some unique skills doing predominantly tenant representation for a prolonged period of time that really give you an edge as it pertains to retention. Many of the transactions I work on aren't moving companies. People hear broker, oh, I don't want to move. Well, most of the time, the best transaction can be accomplished in someone's existing space. And sometimes that can be several years before the lease comes due. Sometimes it's renewal time. There's no tenant out there that should ever renew without a broker. They're always going to do better. So when we began the pandemic and people started coming to the realization that they're paying for office space that they can't use, everybody started combing through their lease for clauses that could help them. Very few had clauses that could help them because it's not the landlord that was telling them they couldn't come into work. It was the government telling them they couldn't come into work. And in many instances, it wasn't even the government telling them they couldn't come in. They were an essential service, so they could come in. So we had to come up with some creative ideas, and some landlords are more amenable to others, whether it was providing some short-term help financially or moving money around a little bit. And maybe we're taking it off the front end and putting it on the back end. Maybe we were looking at a company that had a large security deposit and allocating some of that security deposit towards rent. A lot of these transactions have already happened or been shot down. And we're at a point now, and this is something that we were even looking at during the last couple of months, the more traditional restructuring transactions. If a company has a year, 2 years, 3 years remaining on their lease, I'm in the perfect world, I'm already speaking with them. I want to speak with every tenant out there that's got 3 years remaining on their lease, because we should be looking at what their plans are going forward now more than ever. I mean, my goal in general is to meet with decision makers of companies that lease space. it's not really pertinent to me when their lease comes due. I'm going to be a value add at any point. They could have signed a new lease yesterday, and today I can be of value to them, whether it's helping them with questions in their lease, reviewing their lease to make sure they're aware of what they have, trigger dates that might be valuable for them, bill reviews. I've helped people get sinks in their buildings fixed. I tell my clients that in my mind, my job is never done, and it may not be strictly something you'd think of calling your real estate broker for, but call me, let me know. Client had an issue. The sink in the restroom in the common area didn't work for weeks. I asked them to CC me on the email to the ownership group. I was able to make a phone call, and we got it fixed. It helped. And it helped having an extra person involved who knew everybody on both sides of the table, and it got worked out. I mean, these are odd little funny things that, I can add value along the way. The big value comes in that real estate events seldom wait for the lease to come due. So when a tenant has an issue that really needs the hands-on service of me, if I've already reviewed their lease, already abstracted it, already gained their confidence and developed a relationship, I can jump right in and I can be of even more value to them when that happens. And now it's happening a lot because everybody's trying to figure out what to do.
You're in a position where you have to bring a number of divergent interests together and make sure that they come together, that everybody works together, knowing that everybody has their own interests and what they need individually or for their company, et cetera, and you have to put it all together and make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
A tough thing to do.
Keeps things interesting. And it's important to understand, because I know there's a lot of tenants that feel, well, we should have a concession because we can't use our space. But if we think about it from the 30,000 foot level, and don't get me wrong, I've always been, predominantly on the tenant side of the table, but you have to understand the landlord's position in order to create a deal that works for everybody. If the landlord makes a deal that they can't afford to make, well, the services in the building are going to go down. If every tenant out there stops paying rent or has a rent reduction, the landlords aren't going to be able to pay their overhead, their utilities, their taxes, their debt service. So if we're talking about a more global solution, I think it has to come from the bottom up. There needs to be some relief to the landlords, then so that the landlords can then pay it forward, so to speak, and pass it up to the tenants. And that's the tough one. Where's it going to come from? Is it going to come from the lenders? Is it going to come from the government? The local government certainly can't afford to do this at this point in time. They're doing everything they can already. And, is the federal government going to step in? It's a constantly changing environment. There are some avenues available to ownership groups, building ownership groups, to help them with their costs. Hopefully they're bringing that forward and helping the tenants that truly have needs. And in the meantime, I'm trying, I wouldn't call it mediate, but that's what the nature of a broker is brainstorming with my clients and helping them come up with ideas. And that's one of the reasons that the more people I speak to, the better I am, because I'm learning from very talented business professionals what they're doing and what's working and what's not working. And then I'm able to help them look at, all right, what does this mean? We have half the companies home, half the companies in the office, and then we're switching. Well, if you have the company at 50% capacity, but everybody's coming in at some point and they're all using their own personal work areas, that doesn't enable you to reduce your size. If part of your workforce is staying home permanently going forward, it still may not enable you to reduce your size because you may need more space for social distancing. And then the big question comes, well, but for how long? So we're running the gamut as far as evaluating situations, bringing in architects and other experts in other areas to help evaluate what a company needs now, what they're going to need going forward, how they envision their business changing. There's so many variables. And then we're reevaluating every couple of months. But deals are getting done.
Brokers need to come together and look at this as a partnership, or tenants and renters and brokers, all sides look at this as a partnership instead of everybody seemingly being adversaries in most tenant, renters, brokers, landlords, et cetera, situations. I think everybody most people look at this like, I'm on one side, you're on the other side, and we have to be adversaries here. The way you describe it is that we need a partnership from all sides together. That's what makes it work. For example, you brought out what a landlord needs from a tenant to understand what the landlord has to do to make sure that the tenant, whether it's your own personal place of residence or if you're a business, etc., you have a place to live or operate your business from. If the landlord can't meet his responsibilities, you'll be looking for a new landlord, and it may not be as good as the landlord you have now.
Yep, absolutely. I've posted a number of articles over the past couple of months, and I always try to add in there because I am, generally on the tenant side of the table. I try to add in there, but this has to be something we work together. If a tenant engages me, they're engaging me because they want the best possible deal that can be achieved. And I'm going to get that for them. I'm going to achieve the best possible deal they can get. I've been around long enough to know how to do it. But I also know that at the end of the day, it has to be a deal that works for the landlord, or it's not going to get countersigned. And, there are times when people want what's not realistic, and it's not worth it to be chasing something that is not realistic if you can bring reality to it and help it get done. But it is a very, very interesting time. It's obviously a tough time for most industries. But something that is amazing is there are companies that are thriving in this time and expanding. And, I'm working on a transaction. You talk about getting creative on transactions. I have a client, and they have space that they have under lease for another 4 years. And they have another space that they have under lease for less than a year. We were going to expand before this happened. That doesn't seem to be, the goal now, but they do need to solve these issues, and they'd like to have everybody in one location. So we've been able to work with the landlord that holds the longer lease to get them to transition us into a larger space that will accommodate everybody and release us from the lease, the 4-year lease, put us into one package that enables the client to really thrive going forward. And this is a landlord that's really working with us to make this happen, and a tenant that sees the value of what the landlord's letting them do or enabling us to do, to phase in and grow into a space that's going to accommodate them for the future. These are the landlords that are going to be remembered. And there's some buildings and some landlords where they were either unable or unwilling to help the tenants, and whether justified or not, I know some tenants that are holding grudges and are looking to get rid of their space and to move to other buildings because they feel that something should have been done differently. Should it have? It depends. Some of the situations, no. Other situations, yeah, the tenant could have used some help and really, really needed the help at that point in time. And
here we are in Westchester Talk Radio. I'm John Marino. We are joined by Craig Ruoff, the Executive Managing Director, Colliers International Group, commercial real estate brokers serving our area here. And Craig, as the Executive Managing Director of the Westchester market now for Colliers International Group, if I, John Marino, had a business and I had it for 22 years and the pandemic hits and I can't open my doors tomorrow, the government says I can, I might like to give it a try. The government says you cannot until we give you the okay to do it. I'm stuck here. I have responsibilities. I have debt service. I have employees that I want to keep employed. I have suppliers that I have to make sure get paid. And if I don't pay them, I'm going to hear from them. Might hear from their attorneys. Who knows? How do I come to someone like you, for example, or how does a tenant go to a landlord and ask for some help in a situation like this? How should this be posed instead of, I need your help, come on, you got to do this for me? Generally, that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the most intelligent way to approach this is first, you pay your rent. I tell all my clients, don't withhold your rent. And I've seen that go bad where some people withheld their rent and really burnt the bridge with the landlord. They weren't willing to talk with them.
Rule
Pay
number
the
one
rent.
of business, keep the lights on, right?
Yeah, pay the rent.
Yep.
put together a writing that explains everything you're doing to help yourself. The PPP, all the different programs, everything you're doing, show that you're doing everything you can, that you're not looking for a handout. Then show what is actually happened to you, what's happened to you financially. Open your books, show the stress that's been caused, the decreases in revenue, the people that have been laid off, hopefully not. And, it has to be an open book where the landlord now understands the harm or the damage that you've been suffering. And then it's a matter of really coming up with, what do you need? What do you want? You can leave it to the other side to try to offer something, but it makes more sense to come up with your own strategy. And I've been involved in a number of those where we've tried to come up with creative ways to provide some relief to the tenant while also enabling the landlord to stay whole. And that's a win-win if we can come up with a scenario like that.
So you have to put some work in to get what you want. Then you can't just go to the landlord and say, "Help me."
There may be some where that works, but I think it's
the more ammunition you have, the better off you'll be. How about that?
Much better off to come in prepared.
Come in prepared, right. Now, during these times, too, and here on Westchester Talk Radio, by the way, we are made possible by people like Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April of 2021 here on our isolation therapy series. Also by White Plains Hospital. We thank our heroes at White Plains Hospital, all they've done throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville, and Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction. We thank you one and all. Craig Ruoff, Executive Managing Director, Westchester now for the Colliers International Group, commercial real estate brokers in our area here, in our tri-state area. What are tenants and landlords doing amidst this pandemic here? And as we hopefully are getting out of it step by step now, we seem to be. Let's see what happens if there's a spike in the fall that may change things around again. We are not at that point yet. Hopefully we will not get to that point. We just keep moving in the right direction. What are tenants and landlords, everybody, all stakeholders and shareholders here, doing to abide by the new guidelines, the new guidances, the new regulations that are handed down from those above us who say we have to do this and we have to do that if we want to be open and stay open?
Well, it's been a very good experience to see I shouldn't say everybody, but most people doing what should be done. I've been on several webinars where they're talking about the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems in buildings, and they've had various landlords on explaining how they've been cleaning the systems regularly, how they've been putting in the appropriate MERV filters, which are the recommended filters to help, I guess, maintain the COVID virus. I guess it gets the virus particles out of the air, filters them out, and doing, special cleanings periodically throughout the building. So it's been very good to see the ownership groups of properties doing what they need to do. And then tenants need to do their part once you walk into the space. So the common areas of the building are the landlord's responsibility. The premises that the tenant rents becomes the tenant's responsibility to a large extent. Many times they don't control the HVAC, so they're relying on the landlords to have the proper filters and filtration in the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. But as far as putting the proper distancing signage in place, I've seen that across the board. When you go into offices, people have the stickers, they have the directional signage, they have the arrows. The elevators are set up for that as well. Many buildings, unfortunately, the cafes can't open because they just can't accommodate the social distancing, or there isn't enough supply or demand, demand for it to reopen. But it is very interesting. I mean, walking into my own office, we walk in, we have to check in before we get there, check the boxes to state that we meet the criteria to come in, the health criteria. When we get in, there are thermometers to take your temperature. And if you're running a fever, you need to turn around and go home. If you're not running a fever, you can come in. And there's all the materials that you need to clean and sanitize the thermometers that you've just used. Then there are arrows that lead you in the path that you have to follow so that you're not passing too close to people. Stickers that show where you can stand, how far apart. This is something that you're going to see in every office that's abiding, and hopefully everybody's doing it. Have I heard reports of people not putting their masks on or wearing the masks under their noses? Absolutely. And in many places where that's happened, people have complained and made reports, and it's been remedied. People need to get accustomed that we need to wear the mask, and we need to wear the mask so it covers our nose. If our nose is sticking out, we're not helping anybody. And we need to, maintain the density levels for the elevators.
If you wear your mask down on your chin, like the governor said, you're not wearing it at all.
Exactly. And I see it all the time. I'm in the store, I see somebody wearing it below their nose, and you try to politely encourage them how they can fix their mask and make it fit better and adhere to the guidelines. But, we need to be safe. We're not out of this.
Right.
And people need to keep their distance. They need to wear their masks. They need to wash their hands. And it's definitely changed the way we all do business.
Instead of handshaking, we can elbow bump now too, right?
I don't even elbow bump.
Yeah, whatever works, as
nod,
they say.
A hello, no contact. Keep that 6 feet.
Craig Ruoff, we've had a pandemic. We've had a recession as a result of pandemic, a recession. Around this area here in Westchester, how has all this impacted the effective rental rates for Class A office space around Westchester? And you've talked about what companies and individuals and businesses are doing to make sure that they're able to comply with their office leases, et cetera, with their home rental leases, et cetera, with mortgages, et cetera. It all works in together. But Class A office space, retail office space, and just general office space around Westchester, how hard has this been hit now?
Good question. And it's a question that every tenant that's paying rent or that is looking to lease space is asking. And rates have not come down yet. And I'm speaking primarily of Westchester. I'm working on a project in Manhattan with a counterpart in Manhattan, and it's a different story. We're hearing that there's a softening of rents. And again, I'm speaking to office space. Retail's a whole different world. And retail, what I'm hearing is there are all sorts of deals being worked out, and a lot of concessions being made. Retail rents can work differently. There can be percentage rents that aren't specifically tied to a per square foot rate. In the office world, we're generally tied to a per square foot rate. In Westchester County, we were at the top of the market before the pandemic hit. We were seeing numbers over $40 a foot in downtown White Plains, over $30 a foot along the 287 corridor. We have, in some buildings, we've never seen that. And it was interesting, space was getting leased, tenants were paying money. Even during the pandemic, deals have been done at those numbers. So it is the biggest question is what's going to happen going forward? Are the rates going to come down? In the past couple of weeks, I have seen a few buildings that have adjusted the rates. And I've seen a few scenarios and negotiations where the building owners have been more amenable to reducing the rates. It still ties back to there's a cost to carry that building. And if they're going below that number, it's going to become hard for that ownership group to carry that building. However, if the tenants can't afford to stay in business, there aren't going to be tenants in the building. So it really is a challenging situation. And a lot of it goes back to how the building is owned, how it's financed, and what the ownership group's ability is to bend in the rent, if any. There are going to be some buildings that have no ability to bend, and there are going to be others that have significant ability. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens as far as which buildings are attracting and winning the tenants. Buildings vary tremendously, with the amenities that they have, the quality they have. And then obviously at the end of the day, a lot of people are looking at the money, especially these days.
As we move towards the end of 2020 now, we're in the fourth quarter here.
Mhm.
And you talked about the devastating effect on the real estate market locally in Westchester of this pandemic, of this recession. Yet, a lot of people from Westchester go out to the Hamptons. No matter where you come from, you can go out to the Hamptons now and probably make a score if you're a real estate agent or you work in the real estate business, because the prices have shot way up out there. So you have a big divergence right here within the tri-state area. Is this a good time to get involved in the real estate market if you want to invest, or should we kind of wait and see right now?
Um, there's a lot of investors that are waiting to see. As the people in the real estate investment world call it, there's a lot of dry powder sitting on the sidelines and waiting. And yet we're also hearing about companies that are buying up certain types of space in different areas because of the opportunities. If the numbers drop, where before the purchase of property, the numbers were pretty high. So it really depends what you're looking for. There are buildings on the market that are essentially vacant. Is that a good buy? That's a very risky task, to undertake an empty building. But if a building is leased and it's stable and the tenancy is paying their rents and you get a good comfort level that they're going to continue to do so, well, then you just need to make sure the numbers make sense. So I think that the activity is certainly slowed, but people are looking for places to put their money. The stock market has been volatile, to say the least, and everybody, is always looking for alternatives to diversify. Is it a good time to invest? It's a hard call. I mean, I'm watching the residential rentals, people coming out of the city in droves, so it seems. A friend of mine in the mortgage industry, in the mortgage industry, we're hearing that they're busy as can be. In the moving industry, that they're so busy that they can't even take on additional jobs because there's so many people moving. What's going to happen next? Well, residential leases tend to be a lot shorter, so it's easier for people to move quicker. The next wave people anticipate is going to be commercial. That commercial tenants are going to start to move out of the downtown areas of Manhattan and the surrounding boroughs to where their employees have moved to. So we'll see. We've seen a little bit so far. We've definitely seen some companies coming out of the city. More of them are doing shorter term deals than longer term deals, but we're all kind of expecting that to transition into a more permanent scenario. I think they'll still keep a presence in the city, but I think we're going to see more people looking at opening up shop out here.
Last couple of moments here now with Craig Ruoff, the Executive Managing Director, Westchester County Colliers International Group, Commercial Real Estate, and they just serve this area in a way that others don't at Colliers. Big reason why Craig made the move to Colliers recently. Craig, before you go, tell us, before you sign on a dotted line, whether you be a renter, whether you are looking to buy a home, if you're a broker, if you're a landlord, etc., what do you need to look for? Is there something that applies to everyone with skin in the game that they need to make sure is there before they sign? This way, nobody comes back and says, well, I didn't know about that. I didn't see that there. I didn't think you meant that.
Well, if they are properly represented, they have a good real estate attorney and a good real estate broker working for them, and they have a good head on their shoulders to work with their team and take the advice that's given, they're going to be in a good position that by the time that lease document or that sale contract is fully negotiated and ready to go, they're going to be in as good a position as possible to comfortably sign that document and sleep at night. But the work needs to be put in ahead of time. The planning needs to be in place, and people need to think way ahead. They need to get started early and start having these conversations. And that's why I'm reaching out to as many people as I can. I'm reaching out to as many decision makers for companies that lease space as I can to try to initiate the conversation of what's happening now and what are their thoughts, feelings, and plans for the future, so that I can help them make their best decisions.
Craig Ruoff, for anyone who would like to get in touch with you to discuss any of what we talked about today and more, what is all of your contact information? Website, email, phone numbers?
Well, my email is my first name dot last name, so it's Craig CRAIG .Ruoff, which is RUOFF at Colliers COLLIERS.com. Craig.Ruoff at Colliers.com. And my best number is my cell phone, 914-441-7688. It's 914-441-7688. I'm generally on the move, so the cell phone's the best bet, and those are the best ways to get in touch with me.
And that phone is on 24/7, that I know.
Yep, till they start making the cellular phone implants.
You'll pick up, or at least you'll get back if you're on another call, right? Could be 3 a.m., you'll get back to them. Craig Ruoff, we thank you for being part of Westchester Talk Radio today. All the best to you and all the best over at Colliers. Congratulations to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Sharc Creative. Be safe and have a wonderful weekend.
You too. Craig Ruoff, Executive Managing Director for Westchester County, Colliers International Group, commercial real estate brokers serving our area here. And I'm John Marino. We are Westchester Talk Radio, WestchesterTalkRadio.com, produced, as Craig said, by Sharc Creative. That's Sharc with a C, not a K. And we are made possible by Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April of 2021. Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. Hightower Westchester. At Hightower, they manage your wealth to a fiduciary standard. White Plains Hospital, thanks to all of our White Plains Hospital heroes during this COVID-19 pandemic and all they've done there. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville, and Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction. We thank you one and all. Catch all of our Westchester and Putnam, Dutchess, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.